A little over a week has passed since the Helldivers led and completed the first successful expedition into the interstellar terminid spore cloud, more widely referred to as the Gloom. During this, a new strain of bugs was encountered, the Spore burst strain. Initial images and reports of these put up a very imposing force that we would need to contend with. That said, now that the mission into the Gloom has ended, it is my opinion that, as a longtime player, the Spore burst strain of bugs is off to a rather weak start. As it currently stands, I don't have all the details on how these new bugs work, but from an initial contact perspective, as well as spending hours and lives analyzing them, I've come to this single core conclusion. Spore burst bugs are less dangerous bile bugs, and that just kind of sucks. Now, I think that statement stands well enough on its own, but I wanted to take a closer look at this. I wanted to see just how similar the Spore burst strain is to the bile scabs and warriors found in other terminid infestations, and consider just how we could make them a little bit more unique. Lucky for us, I have combat footage from some very democratic volunteers, comparing the two sets in combat across 3 different armor ratings, both with and without the vitality booster. First up, light armor. Now medium armor. And finally, heavy armor. Combat footage analysis conclusion? Honestly, for a strain of bugs that, and I quote, explodes into a deadly spore cloud upon death, these guys just don't hold a candle to the bile variants, who do significantly more damage and are just much more dangerous in close quarters. Now, if these spore clouds acted as a damage over time zone that could cause Helldivers to, I don't know, asphyxiate if they remained in it for too long, that would change things. It's not the explosion that you need to worry about, but the resulting cloud that would block your vision and your airways. This would also make positioning a little bit more of a challenge, as you need to be wary of where the clouds are, so like with fire or gas, you don't run into it while fighting the rest of the horde. It also warrants a bit of extra caution around objectives. Don't want to make the terminal a death trap, yeah? At least, if it were my choice, that's what I'd do about it. I'd also probably make the damage be gas, which would give advanced filtration armor a bit more kick in the gloom. It would also pair well with the abundance of gas stratagems currently in use on the bug front. Of course, when push comes to shove, you could just stim through it. That's always an option. It's probably obvious by now that I'm personally not all that impressed by the new bugs. There's a lot of cool stuff in the Gloom, like the environment. That is super well done. The infested cities really do make me feel like a heroic exterminator on a mission to avenge the fallen citizens, the voters, heroes of democracy, those that died here defending their homes from a terminid scourge. It's just that the bugs themselves really could have been a bit more interesting. This is partly due to the recent battle we had against the Predator strain, which, while I also have qualms with those, they threw a lot of divers for a loop, such that there were plenty of reports in the community of a spike in difficulty against the Predators, and a generally positive feel from the rest of the player base. To go from that to these spore bugs that are just biles that trade damage for a temporary visibility impairment, it feels like a step backwards, though it does make me hope that this is another Illuminate situation. I'm hoping that the Spore Burst bugs will be expanded on and evolved as we push further and further into the Gloom. Maybe we'll see special variants on Chargers or Bile Titans. I know one's already been teased as is. And maybe the Spore Clouds will have more of an effect with some new specialized enemies. I read a comment on Reddit somewhere that suggested the possibility of a bug that targets Helldivers who have been hit by the Spore Burst, in a similar manner to the way Left 4 Dead's Boomer Bile will make the Horde target the Barfeld Survivor. Having a particular bug would open up more target priority decisions and also reinforce the strength of a team, as they could opt to destroy it early, wait for it to close in, or even use other divers as bait, intentionally getting splashed by spores to divert its attention and make it an easier target for others, or just otherwise acting as a diversion. Mechanics like these, and enemies like these, would further reinforce the central idea of fighting the bugs, which is, don't let them get close. And I think those would be great additions to the game. There's one other thing with this whole foray into the Gloom that doesn't really sit right with me. I'd heard we got new missions in the time leading up to my first drops on the planet, but it quickly dawned on me that these new missions were just repurposed from other objectives already in the game. Research Probes is a renamed run of upload escape pod data. Collect meteorological data is the same as retrieve recon craft intel from the Squid front. The new Blitz secure research site is still just a Blitz, there's nothing new about it aside from the name. Collect Gloom Spore readings and chart turret tunnels reuse the LiDAR stations and geo-survey sub-objectives respectively, and both lead into a retrieve valuable data main objective, albeit without the triple S drive. Honestly, I wasn't expecting them to roll out a whole planet's worth of new mission objectives, but I personally would have loved to see something actually new. Hell, I could think of a couple tweaks on the current mission set that would feel a little bit more unique and still suit the Gloom theme we got going on. First, the Blitz. It says secure research site, but what if the objective was to actually secure the area? What if the secure research site main objective was to destroy all bug spawners on maybe a smaller map, rather than a specific number of holes? Now, if you use the normal size map, this would have to be a full-length mission, but I could see like a LiDAR station or something being a guaranteed side objective, or maybe even a sub-objective, to help with finding the stalker nest and that one spore spewer that likes to hide behind the massive rock. Secondly, collect Gloom Spore readings. Again, instead of LiDAR stations and broadcast relays, maybe the squad gets a shared area scan stratagem, similar to an EMS strike, intended to be used on high densities of bugs or on bug structures. Something like scanning spore spewers would give the most mission progress because, you're collecting spore readings. But other bug structures like shrieker nests or outposts would give a moderate amount too. And when push comes to shove and you've cleared the entire map and still haven't completed main objective, because that just happens sometimes, you could scan hordes of bugs too, with the amount of progress given being relative to how many bugs were caught in the area, which I'm thinking would be somewhere like an EMS strike or a Galley Barrage, as stated earlier, maybe a little bit smaller, something you'd have to be somewhat accurate with. At the end of the day, I really do hope that this is just a prelude to getting some more interesting enemies to fight, and not just a bunch of reskins on previously faced foes and objectives. Though I admit, I'm not holding my breath on that. It just leaves a bunch of open questions. Are we going to see some truly new enemies on the bug front soon? Do Spore Burst bugs need to be more unique? And what other freakish foes are waiting for us deep within the Gloom? Make your thoughts known in the comments, and until the next time, remember, for prosperity, for liberty, or democracy. Gaze out.